Hello friends, and welcome back to another video. Today I am going to be telling you the sordid tale of Ms.Scribe, a writer of Harry Potter smut fanfiction who girl-bossed her way into the highest echelons of fandom royalty in a suspiciously short amount of time. Her methods were dubious, but oh sweaty did she girl boss. This story takes place mainly between 2002 and 2006, and at the time that it ended, that all was revealed, so 2006, this story was absolutely shocking to people. It was the biggest, well-documented online fandom scandal ever, easily at that point. Ms.Scribe predates Snape Wives, she predates any of the freaks claiming to have written My Immortal, she predates My Immortal itself. So if you're coming here from my video about Snape Wives, or one of my many videos about My Immortal, you might be a little bit jaded to these sorts of stories as I am. Maybe the tale of Ms.Scribe's crimes is not gonna blow your tits clean off like it did to people in 2006, but it is still very, very good. She is the grandmother to all of them. I was a little scared initially when I found out just how old this story is, because with these sorts of intricate online dramas, it's very easy for details to be lost. Obviously things only get worse with time because things go down across myriad websites, in DMs, in comment sections, and most importantly, people delete all their stuff in the wake of drama, so it can become extremely difficult to track down evidence if people don't screenshot things in the moment. And considering all of these issues with archiving these sorts of stories, the Ms.Scribe story is just an absolute blessed goldmine. This story comes to us 20 years later, gloriously intact, a pristine, holy text. I have in fact printed it out because I have terrible eye strain from reading off of screens for too long. So I have my highlighted and annotated copy. Very good stuff. I don't know what to do with this thing now. But this is a 10-chapter long document entitled The Ms.Scribe Story, an Unauthorized Fandom Biography. It was written in 2006 by JournalFan user Charlotte Lennox. She of course had the help of many others in her community with gathering screenshots and evidence, not to mention the continued efforts of internet users to preserve this document after JournalFan shut down. But Charlotte Lennox is the main author. On her profile she says, "Greetings, my name is Charlotte Gordon Lennox and I am the loquacious Duchess of Richmond. My friends call me TLDR, I'm not sure why. I have a keen interest in recording fandom history, and I hope that you will find my observations of some interest." And yeah, TLDR, this thing is long. But have no fear, because I, your humble internet guide, am going to take you through this monstrosity, this masterpiece, add some context and thoughts throughout. We're gonna experience this together. Remember to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, because when I reach 1 million subscribers, I will be reading the entirety of My Immortal on camera for you. I have even created some commemorative stickers for the occasion, which you can get over on Shopify, link in the description below. They're a little bit janky because I make them myself, but they're made with love. I kiss every one before I tuck it into its envelope and send it to you. The final thing before we launch into the tale of Ms.Scribe is a word from our sponsor, Discord. I am unimaginably hyped to be working with Discord because their product is something that I love so much and use every single day. In my opinion, Discord is absolutely the best way to talk over text, voice, and video, and to connect with your communities. So whether it's a fandom, a hobby, an aesthetic, a Discord server is a great way to connect with those communities you're a part of on probably a more personal level than social media usually allows. One such community, which exists, is my own. You can join it with the link in the description below. It's a lot of fun and it is blessedly organized. You want to post pictures of your pets, your cooking, talk about a new show you're watching, meet people to play games or watch movies with. We got ya. We have all kinds of custom stickers and emojis of me making dumb faces in my videos, although I will say my favorite one is still the long Furby of customizable length. Discord has just been the perfect place to create this awesome, fun community that I really enjoy interacting with. Remember to click the link below if you want to join. You can talk to other people who like the same kind of weird stuff that I talk about in my videos. You can suggest new video topics, you can share your memes, whatever you want. Go check it out. It is important that I take some time to thoroughly set the scene here, because before Ms.Scribe ever emerged onto this scene, I think it's pretty clear that she was a more anonymous user consuming this kind of content, studying this ecosystem, figuring out how best to later manipulate it to her own ends. Once again, I have to take you back to the early 2000s Harry Potter fandom. And I know you might be thinking, why is it always Harry Potter fandom? You think you've been in some fandoms? This thing was an absolute beast of a fandom. This thing was huge. It was easily the biggest fandom of the 2000s. It was like everybody knew something about Harry Potter. It was such a huge cultural phenomenon. And because it was so vast, fanfiction authors could become like micro celebrities within their own niche. The term was actually big name fans, fans who were famous within their fandom. The most popular sites for fandom-y little activities back then were fanfiction.net, created in 1998, and LiveJournal, created in 1999. However, the crucible where these factors that would eventually affect Ms.Scribe were formed was really a Yahoo group called Harry Potter for Grown-Ups, which is just hurts me to say. This group was formed around 2000, 2001-ish, but a rift eventually formed between the users over shipping preferences. There was a faction who preferred Harry and Hermione to be together, and there was a faction that preferred Hermione and Ron. Keep in mind, there was only 4 Harry Potter books out at this point. Like, nothing was decidedly endgame canon. It was like, there was a lot of room for speculation, for debates about what was going to become canon. The animosity between these 2 factions of users on Harry Potter for Grown-Ups eventually grew to the point that one faction broke away and started their own fanfiction site called Sugarquill. That site prided itself in being relatively, like, clean compared to other fanfiction sites, as well as it stressed canon compliance, so only Harry and Ginny and Ron and Hermione pairings were allowed on there. Hi, sorry, for some reason when I filmed this the first time I said the complete opposite of what I meant. Carry on. Pairings that were likely to be canon, although it was later expanded to include the Remus and Sirius pairing, so really, it was just whatever, up to the preferences of the mods. It's important to remember that the internet was less centralized on huge social media sites back then. So yes, fanfiction and LiveJournal were the biggest and most popular sites, but it was definitely not unheard of to just go create your own site for you and your friends and like-minded people if you did not vibe with those platforms. The other faction of users from Harry Potter for Grown-Ups founded a fanfiction site called Fiction Alley, which allowed whatever you want. Go crazy, go stupid, insane non-canon pairings, gay stuff, teacher-student pairings, incest, whatever you want. Fiction Alley was formed as a response to Sugarquill, yes. But there was another factor which drove those founding members to create it. You see, they had in their ranks the ultimate, the Regina George of big-name fans. Cassandra Clare. Yes, published author whose 7,000 identical-looking books were just inescapable if you went to the YA section of a bookstore from like 2010 to 2015. She was their queen, and she got banned from fanfiction.net for plagiarism, so they were gonna need another site for her to post on. And this isn't like some vague accusation, by the way, like she did it. She did do it. It's very easy to look at a thing and look at the source material and be like, oh, they're the same. Yeah, she plagiarized this. Apparently she was always known to kind of slightly alter snappy quotes from movies and TV shows and put them in her fanfictions, but this time she just straight up copied a large passage from a published novel and changed the character names or whatever, so she got banned for that. And her reputation as the queen does not seem to have been too damaged by this. She had a lot of loyal fans who followed her over to Fiction Alley and it formed the initial user base there. So we have 2 independent fanfiction sites, Sugarquill and Fiction Alley. Charlotte Lennox writes, both sites were heavily staffed by Harry Potter for Grown-Ups veterans, and relations between the 2 sites were polite but strained. Which makes sense. They clearly had a lot of disagreements, but they also had previously been friends and they knew each other really well, so you kind of feel a need to be polite. You have some empathy for that other person still. And then a few months later, a 3rd site entered onto the scene. It was called Gryffindor Tower. It was dedicated exclusively to the Harry-Ginny pairing. It did allow smut, but it was locked behind a password, which you had to like ask a mod for and prove that you were an adult. So it was still very possible to have a family-friendly experience on that site and not see any smut by accident. Gryffindor Tower was really a wild card because nobody else in the fandom really knew the mods personally. They were always a very isolated community, so imaginations were kind of free to run wild about what type of people they might be. And it did not help their reputation that the queen, Cassandra Clare, was very vocally anti the Harry-Ginny pairing. And not even for like any huge moral reason. Like, I've looked back at some of her old posts and it's just like, she thinks that Ginny is kind of like a underdeveloped character. Her whole thing is that she has like a childish fangirly crush on Harry, and so the relationship tends to be portrayed as very like fluffy and frivolous and lacks the interesting angst and conflict of other pairings. Which like seems like an inoffensive personal preference. Like, you would think people could agree to disagree about this sort of thing, but apparently not. One day, Cassandra Clare decided to give the Harry-Ginny pairing give it a shot, give it a chance, read some fics. So she asked her audience for recommendations. And you know, I see if they knew what her preferences were. They were trying to recommend her like an edgier Harry Ginny fic. I see why they picked the one they picked. But okay. It was a fic called Alpha and Omega, and it was written by one of the Gryffindor Tower mods. The plot was essentially that actually anyone of Harry's bloodline would be able to defeat Voldemort, but like, what if Harry dies? So Dumbledore decides it's super cool to just like breed Hogwarts students like livestock, and Harry has to get Ginny pregnant, and it's all very R-rated. Cassandra Clare came out of reading that absolutely appalled and posted across her platforms that this fanfiction was just the most god-awful thing in the world. It was all-out war between Cassandra Clare, her fans, the Fiction Alley community, and the Gryffindor Tower community. And now obviously this was not a fair fight. Gryffindor Tower was a niche fanfiction site that really minded its own business, and Cassandra Clare was one of the most famous fans in the fandom. Her bad review of a work by a Gryffindor Tower mod quickly became representative in a lot of people's minds of like what the entirety of Gryffindor Tower must be like. Of course, many of her fans went over there to leave more mean comments, or flames. They called them flames back then. Prep, stop flaming, you know? We should bring that back, flames. What happened then was that one of the husbands of one of the Gryffindor Tower mods, Jeff, thanks Jeff, decided to insert himself into the situation. He wasn't even the husband of the woman whose fanfiction Cassandra Clare hated. He was like her friend's husband. Jeff's a real one, okay? I'll give him that. He sent Cassandra Clare many threatening emails. He had figured out her real name, where she lived, very much implied that he was going to hurt her in some way. I do know what you look like and where you live, but you'll never see me coming. You will now pay for your bad-mouthing of others. June 22nd is about to return to you, bitch. I don't really know what that means. Well, I've had enough. You will no longer do this without hearing my wrath. You will not be able to escape me. I will be, at every turn, hounding you. I will be unmerciful and ruthless. You know, Jeff's a real one, I'll give him that. But the only people in the fandom who she knew for sure knew her real name were some of the old Harry Potter for Grown-Ups gang who were now Sugar Quill mods. So initially she'd expected betrayal, backstabbing, but it was not the Sugar Quill mods. They actually ended up helping with the investigation, and through tracking IP addresses, they eventually managed to unmask Jeff. He and his wife kind of removed themselves from the fandom scene altogether after this because you don't really come back from that. I mean, Cassandra Clare had a very good reason to press charges if she'd wanted to. This was a really big public drama. I mean, like, Cassandra Clare, the queen, stalked and harassed by the bitter husband of a Gryffindor Tower mod over teen pregnancy fanfiction. Like, that is spicy. Okay, that is spicy. Gryffindor Tower and Fiction Alley were sworn enemies from this moment forwards, and Cassandra Clare was this hero of an epic tale of stalking and backstabbing and intrigue. Over the next year, her and her group of friends who had started up Fiction Alley really became just these respected legends in the community. Every Fiction Alley user wanted to be acknowledged by them, wanted to be friends with them. They were the hot popular girls of 2000's Harry Potter smut. It is now November of 2002, and accounts start popping up across the fandom world under the username Ms.Scribe. As an introduction, she wrote, "Waves hand in the air like a beauty queen, beauty queen. Just hello, I'm 29, not quite, but getting used to saying it early. I've got 12 weeks off from work, wrote my last fic in between playing Chicken Dance Elmo with my 17-month-old daughter, relatively new to the intoxicating world of fandom. I live in Delaware in the US, and I have an unhealthy attraction for Lucius Malfoy." She posted 2 Harry Hermione fics on a site called Portkey. Yes, another one. There were so many Harry Potter fanfiction sites, all with their own kind of culture and reputation attached to them. Portkey is not important, thankfully. It's just the one she posted on first for whatever reason. You don't have to remember it. But that's where she made her first ever fandom friend, a user called Baby Girl, later called Infinitus on LiveJournal. It's also where she attracted the first fans of her work, and one outright stan, I dare say. I mean, not really. The word stan didn't exist yet. I think they just would have said fangirl. Ms.Scribe's first fangirl was named Clarabella. Her entire account pretty much ended up being dedicated to stanning Ms.Scribe, or fangirling Ms.Scribe, and to a lesser extent her friend Infinitus as well. Clarabella made a website about Ms.Scribe. She had a Ms.Scribe icon. On Portkey you could have like a signature thing at the bottom of your profile, and hers was a Ms.Scribe quote and a link to the website she created. And not only that, but Clarabella personally reached out to Ms.Scribe to tell her just how much she loved her work, that if they lived near each other she would love to take her out for lunch sometime. And it turned out that they did only live 45 minutes away from each other, so they quickly became IRL friends. Ms.Scribe quickly attracted two more ride or die fangirls, Julie Davis and Sarah K. James, both of whom had obnoxious Ms.Scribe profile pictures. Must have been some life-changing fanfiction. Well, Charlotte Lennox describes Ms.Scribe as frankly a mediocre fanfiction writer, but says that she had a real talent for telling stories from her personal life, for making herself sound extremely cool and clever, very much building up a cult of personality around herself. Her following also had to have been intrigued by all of the drama, because drama followed Ms.Scribe from pretty much the moment that she entered the fandom. She was plagiarized 3 separate times within only a few months of joining Portkey. In March 2003, she suffered a brain edema, which basically means brain swelling, was rushed to the hospital, nearly died. Meanwhile, Clarabella is tearfully reporting every update in the Portkey forums. I called Dione at 4 p.m. today. That's Ms.Scribe's real first name. She used it freely back then, so I don't mind saying it. Her real first name was Dione, so Clarabella posted, "I called Dione at 4 p.m. today and learned that she had collapsed in the studio today and was taken to the hospital. Many of you do not know this, although she is very open about it, but Ms.Scribe began writing Harry Potter fanfiction after a bad car accident resulted in her suffering a traumatic head injury, and her therapist told her to try writing in order to help her rehabilitation. They aren't sure what's going on yet, but I will post regular updates as I get them. They're hoping she will wake up soon. I can't describe how much she means to me. She didn't even know me and she friended me. She drove to my school, took me to lunch, talked to me regularly about my issues with my parents. I had $3 to live on and she slipped me $50 into my purse without even a note. She sent me chocolate chip cookies during my finals. I'm crying. She is kind and genuine and funny and such a good mom to her young daughter. I will post as soon as I find out something else. Yours, Clara." The user base came together to wish Ms.Scribe the best. Even if they hadn't known her very well, I think they were harrowed by something this scary happening to someone in their community. But thankfully Ms.Scribe recovered and was back at her computer posting in no time, now an even more well-known and respected member of the Portkey community. Lennox tells us Ms.Scribe, her 3 fangirls, and her friend Baby Girl had good grammar and spelling, and a certain sophistication that stood out at Portkey. As Ms.Scribe put it, she and Baby Girl were sort of the Portkey grown-ups, and they quickly became very popular there. But after conquering the provinces, they moved on to the capital. Ms.Scribe moved her online presence to primarily LiveJournal and Fiction Alley, the fanfiction site started by Cassandra Clare and her friends. Of course, her entourage followed her there. Clarabella and Sarah K. James made accounts on LiveJournal which were just entirely dedicated to Ms.Scribe. They promoted her fanfiction. They made more websites about her, one of which was dedicated to smutty fan art of her work. They made a Yahoo discussion group about Ms.Scribe. When Ms.Scribe posted about a sexual assault that she'd suffered, Sarah K. James immediately joined forums for survivors and promoted the post there, talking about how it had inspired her to share her own story. Ms.Scribe's LiveJournal looked like this at the time, and it's gonna be seared into my retinas forever. She had a brand, I'll give her that. She continued to win the hearts of the public with stories from her personal life. They were usually either like cute, fluffy stories about her young daughter, or about the malevolent haters and plagiarists stalking her, sending her horrid emails at all hours of the day. There were often hints sprinkled in regarding her lifestyle, because did you know that her husband is a lawyer and she's rich, by the way? I'll read you one of her most successful posts just to give you an idea of her absolutely obnoxious writing style. I think this is a really nice predecessor to the Tumblr fake story, by the way. I get this phone call from my daughter's daycare saying that they'd like to talk to me about daughter's name. I'm thinking, all right, who was the little bugger bitten this time? So we make an appointment, and I go inside, and there is my daughter in the office with another little girl and her mother. Well, there weren't any visible marks, at least. So I sit down, and the other mother is sitting there, near tears, and she tells me that our daughters have been kissing each other on the mouth. And how could the center not call her? And that she discovered them kissing in the corner when she came to pick her daughter up. Then she went on to say how she was from a very religious family, and that she was concerned with this behavior. My daughter is all of 18 months old, and hers is 17 months. So at this point I'm thinking, what the fuck? Is this lady kidding me? And it didn't help that I was feeling like a real smartass yesterday. But anyhow, this lady starts tearing up, looking towards me for empathy, and tells me her daughter has been kissing a lot of girls on the mouth, and that she's worried she might be gay. So I say, sympathetic person that I am, well, your daughter might be gay, but I think mine is just experimenting. Daycare lady chokes back laughter. Then, does she go for the blue crayon instead of the pink one? Daycare lady almost in tears. The mother starts thinking seriously about what I've just said. then you can see her expression change as she realizes I'm screwing with her. So my daughter picks the opportune moment to try and snog her daughter again, and soon the babies are going at it in the corner. And being the sensitive person that I am, I say, please don't kiss your girlfriend in front of her mommy, it upsets her. Daycare lady loses it. The mother gets up and claims she isn't bringing her daughter back. Ours is the best daycare in town, mind you, because her husband is a lawyer and she's rich, by the way. 2 governor's awards in a row, and they have their own chef, and it's a year waitlist to get in. And she tells me I'm going to hell, my daughter is going to hell, and that she'll pray for us anyway. Hee hee. Then she gets up, goes out the door, and drives away in her classic Cadillac with a bumper sticker on the back that says, "Seek salvation." Tacky, I hate bumper stickers on luxury cars. This is a school for only rich kids, by the way, because by the way, she's rich and her husband is a lawyer. So I hug my daughter and tell her she needs to find someone more in line with our political views, and she points to the TV in the daycare office and proclaims, "Teletubbies." I mean, really, people, how can anyone be worried about their children's sexuality at 18 months? At 18 months, you're still trying to keep them from sticking their heads in the toilet. Mine is occasionally running into our glass door. I can't believe anyone would waste time thinking about this. She says at the end of her entry, wow, this journal is just like therapy. She's just so quirky and relatable and progressive. March 2003, Ms.Scribe makes a post entitled, "My Dumbass Letter to Cassandra Clare." It was essentially just a very flattering review of one of Cassandra Clare's recent writings, but Ms.Scribe got a lot of backlash for it. She got a lot of comments from people who were angry that she was aligning herself with Cassandra Clare and the fiction alley types. You would fucking like it. You think it's all fun to talk about how great you are, and all of you can suck my dick with your homo shit. Ms.Scribe was my favorite writer until I found out she wrote some sick Ron Ginny shit, and like that bitch Cassie's story. Fuck off. Hated it. I'm taking you off my fave authors list. I thought you were Harry Hermione, and you're not, and you're just like Cassie and her homo-loving friends. Why are they all homophobic? Thank you, Ms.Scribe, ultimate ally. Her posts and the sort of discourse that she always tended to end up involved in kind of continued going in this direction. It was always about championing her progressive political beliefs under a thin veil of Harry Potter fandom discourse, and it was very often issues of feminism and like female empowerment and body positivity and sexuality. People on one side called her disgusting and insulted her appearance and said she was going to hell. People on the other side talked about how inspiring and real she was. One very notable example was a comment written by an abuse survivor from Pakistan who could barely speak English but needed to comment to tell Ms.Scribe that, "Oh, Casper, hi. Hi, baby, you fucked up my camera angle." So this woman just absolutely needed to comment because Ms.Scribe had made her realize that women could be powerful. And I know you're probably thinking at this point, okay, Strange, just cut the bullshit, okay? I know you're trying to like build up suspense and build up our curiosity or whatever, but like, we watch your channel, we know how these stories go. Yes, okay, fine, you're very smart. Ms.Scribe's crime was indeed being a master sock puppeteer. Someone who creates many alternative accounts and different personas to interact with their main account and create the illusion of popularity or drama or whatever it is they want to achieve, when it's really just them on like a million different accounts. So it's unknown how many of the commenters on Ms.Scribe's account at this point were real. Certainly some of them were, but others, I think it's safe to say, were her, such as the abuse survivor from Pakistan who had been enlightened to feminism because of Ms.Scribe, the people commenting about how she's just like that charlatan Cassandra Clare. But the illusion that Ms.Scribe was building up was working. Nobody really thought to look for this kind of thing happening on a mass scale back then, and the fake following that she's created for herself was slowly turning into a real one. Also in March 2003, a LiveJournal user called FermatoJam appeared. Fermato? Should I pronounce it like tomato or does that make it worse? FermatoJam? Unclear. FermatoJam I think is the least offensive way I can pronounce it. Okay. FermatoJam's first post reads, "Manifesto. I am a Christian. I love Jesus, God, and all things in his name. I also love Harry Potter. I will post later why I feel like the two can go hand in hand. I'm here because Harry Potter fandom isn't for the meek. It's a sick, disgusting place, and I think it's my job to help clean out the crap that has made it what it is. I used to enjoy reading Harry Potter fanfiction. That is until they took over. I mean the perverts, the disgusting slashers and purveyors of pornography and smut lovers. They took my favorite characters, Harry, Hermione, and Ron, and made them do horrible things that poor J.K. Rowling must cringe at. They are anti-American. They are hurting all of the fandom. They must be exposed." He posted harassing comments and Bible passages on the LiveJournal pages of Ms.Scribe and Cassandra Clare. Then he posted this, "Cassandra Clare, you are first. She has infected us with her captivating writing style and sucked innocence into her sick world. She is a virus on the Harry Potter fandom. She is a part of a group of vile pedophiles and F-slurs who have seemingly taken over everywhere. I love a good fan fiction, but to find it, I have to visit sites infected with this sort of evil. Her Draco trilogy is homosexuality! For goodness sake, and no one seems to be outraged by it. Well, I am outraged that you have taken these meaningful books and turned them into evil and sin. Harry is a noble character, and you have made him into an F-slur? Fucking hell. Cassie Clare is anti-Potter. It is because of vile people like her that people like me are afraid to raise our voices in this fandom, but she is only the beginning. She is simply the top of my list. Yes, there was a list. It was called the Big Name Sinners List, so a play on Big Name fans. The Big Name Sinners List was really quite the hit, quite the meme. Everybody wanted to be on it. Everybody wanted to provoke Formato Jam into putting them on it. They made Big Name Sinner profile pictures and wore them like badges of honor. It was a huge source of unity for them. It inspired people who were on the list to add everybody else on the list to their friends list. And even people who weren't on the list were still intrigued to add the people on the list to partake in the good fun of laughing at this crazy Christian come to save the fandom's souls. Lennox theorizes that the Big Name Sinners list was in fact just a list of writers that Ms.Scribe admired and wanted to be friends with. And if that's the case, I mean, it was a wild success because she was Formato Jam. She decided to deepen this plot she'd come up with even more by saying that Formato Jam had in fact been harassing and stalking her for months, sending her horrid emails, things not so different from the things that maybe Jeff would have sent Cassandra Clare back in the day. It's almost as if she's been heavily inspired by previous events when coming up with her own dramas. At this point, I have recapped only 2 of the 10 chapters in Lennox's unauthorized biography of Ms.Scribe. And before I go any further, I do want to address a small elephant in the room. You may be thinking to yourself, dear viewer, so these women were writing porn about, like, 13, 14-year-old characters. Does it really take a crazy Christian conservative to be a little skeeved out by that? And I promise you this issue is still an absolute fucking nuclear disaster of a debate in fandom culture today. And then there's kind of the gray area of aging up characters. I think most of these women probably were writing about the Harry Potter characters as hypothetical adults, or at least hypothetical 18-year-olds at Hogwarts. Fandom often takes characters from the original canon and just snowballs them into something completely new, so that the original canon doesn't even really matter that much in the context of fanfiction. Fanon Draco is one of the most infamous examples ever, and obviously Cassandra Clare was a huge contributor to that, but that's not what this video was about. So these women were not, well, first of all, they were not always writing smut, and second of all, they were not always writing smut about underage characters. That did happen though. That absolutely did happen. The Harry Ginny fanfiction that Cassandra Clare read being a great example, her disgusted reaction to it also being a good example of how a lot of these people felt about these kind of more taboo fanfiction subjects. She does write incest later on in the story, don't worry about it yet though. Not everyone involved in this story is automatically a depraved weirdo, that is not what I'm trying to say at all. And I don't want to leave you with that impression. April Fool's Day 2003, Ms.Scribe posted this: "Lavish praise and worship upon thy goddess. Behold the following commandments. Thou shalt have no authors before me. Thou shalt read Under the Silver Moon over and over again until the sight of a canoe brings thou to orgasm." I assume that's a reference to one of her fanfictions or one of her friends' fanfictions. "Thou shalt stick thy fingers in thy ears while singing my praise if someone criticizes me. Thou shalt print out all of my stories and roll around in them naked. Thou shalt not go sneaking off to Cassandra Clare's live journal. Only thy goddess is allowed to do that. Thou shalt speak the name Ms.Scribe only if it is followed by God, I love her. Thou shalt be a kind, considerate member of the fanboy fangirl harem, and lick thy goddess's feet upon request. Thou shalt bow before Infinitus, for she is beloved and dear to thy goddess. Thou shalt send much email to Ms.Scribe at Comcast.net and praise thy goddess at least once a day. If thou dost not submit to my will, I will smite thee with madness. Leave praise, and I will bless thee. Have a nice day. Thy goddess." She then received this anonymous comment: OMG, I can't believe anyone would be so cocky enough to try and do this, and I fucking hate Cassie Clare anyway. Now I hate you, because you're nothing but a self-righteous bitch. No one is going to worship you, so get over yourself. And then she received another comment from an account by the name of Killigan Has Hope. I will pray for you. I know this is supposed to be a joke, but there are many people out there, like myself, who take their faith seriously. I am insulted and disgusted by this post, and I hope God's love reaches you in time. Know that you will be in my prayers, and I hope that you and your so-called friends, although true friends, would guide you toward the light and not away from it. Find God's love. I am familiar with the incident involving you and someone I used to counsel, and I thought perhaps he had exaggerated about this group, but I was sadly mistaken. I'm sorry for the way in which he responded to you. No good person of faith should condemn the way he did, but I agree with him condemning your actions. God loves you, and if you ever want to know the peace I have found, please feel free to email me. So this person is another Christian, come to save the souls of the depraved Harry Potter fandom, and he's some kind of a counselor to Formato Jam, whatever that is supposed to mean. This comment then led to a 10-hour long internet slap fight between Ms.Scribe and her friends and Killigan, in which Ms.Scribe and Clarabella reveal that Formato Jam was not just some online hater, but in fact a full-on stalker and serial hacker, to which Killigan goes, yes, he was a troubled young man and his actions were regrettable. Y'all still need Jesus though. Some anonymous commenters also joined in the stupid internet slap fight on the side of Killigan. Ms.Scribe threatens one of them in one instance, which I find interesting. She threatens them with tracking their IPs. LiveJournal has this feature, which they described in a 2011 blog post as an anti-harassment feature. It allows users to log the IP addresses of everyone who comments on their journal, anonymous or not. It's a feature you have to turn on in your privacy settings. Not everyone uses it by default, but clearly Ms.Scribe was a fan. An IP address will tell you someone's general location and their internet service provider. So if you're really getting anon flames from mystery hackers that you don't know, having their IP address is not going to tell you a lot about them, so I don't really know why Ms.Scribe is throwing this around as if she has people's home address and medical records. Like, just an IP address is not a super useful doxing tool on its own. However, if you're getting anon flames from one of your internet friends backstabbing you, you'll know because their IP address will show up the same whether they're anonymous or on their actual account. Ideally, that's the idea. Programs to disguise IP addresses existed even back then and will be a factor in the story going forward. I'm getting ahead of myself though. So, Killigan then joined various Christian forums to complain about Ms.Scribe and her friends there. I was browsing LiveJournal and I found this post. I found it hurtful, so I told the author in a polite way. Now it seems I'm involved in a never-ending debate about the Bible, and I'm questioning if it was better for me not to have said anything at all. I feel sad, because I do not hate anyone, yet people have mocked me, my faith, etc. I didn't condemn this user, I simply voiced my opinion, and only one or two people have spoken up along with me. Have I failed? Was I wrong? Am I judging? I could use advice. This tactic of, like, going to the forums trying to get actual Christians to attack her, like, evil. Would have been genius if it had actually worked. Because most of them told Killigan to just stop talking to Ms.Scribe then if she was upsetting him so much. Like, essentially the 2003 equivalent of, sir, please close computer, go touch grass. There was one singular real Christian person from the forums who didn't seem to know anything about Harry Potter or what was going on here, who left 2 vague comments on Ms.Scribe's journal that said, fact, God, there is no other. And there is only one true God. God is amazing, isn't he? Ms.Scribe then immediately made a post linking everyone to this person's account, trying to send the fandom to harass this person, probably shaking with delight at having attracted a real crazy Christian hater, but obviously this didn't go anywhere. This person didn't engage with them. It's almost as if no real Christians are like the insane caricatures she tried to create. I'm sure some people really would have been outraged if they had seen the kinds of things that Ms.Scribe and her friends were writing, but I don't think they would have spent 10 hours arguing about it on LiveJournal. They probably would have vented about it to like-minded people. There were absolutely hardcore Christians back then who hated Harry Potter because they saw it as, like, somehow sinister and, like, promoting witchcraft to children. Those people were ridiculous and they existed, but you didn't tend to find them having 10-hour arguments on LiveJournal with fanfiction writers. This type of person that Ms.Scribe seems to be constantly creating, this hardcore Harry Potter fan and hardcore Bible fan. I don't know if people like this really tended to exist, but the fact that her haters were both of those things, I think allowed her to stir up a lot more inter-fandom drama. Like, if someone had showed up being like, Harry Potter sucks and is witchcraft, I think that would cause the fandom to just kind of like band together against them. But having the haters have opinions about shipping dynamics and different fanfiction websites and like really being like in their culture and in their fandom, it just, so much more opportunity to cause strife. Ms.Scribe tried to frame one of the Gryffindor Tower mods for being Killigan. She made a post straight up saying that they had the same IP address. It was not a real IP, it just traced back to errors if you tried to verify her claim, but most of her friends and fans just thought this must be an honest mistake on her part. How could such a thing happen? Lennox writes, at this time, Ms.Scribe had achieved all of her goals. She was friended by everyone she had wanted to be friended by, and she could easily have reached any pinnacle of fandom popularity she wanted to reach just by her own considerable talents. Okay, she was only a mediocre fic writer, in my opinion, but she was a fantastic live journalist. Witty, iconoclastic, eloquent, imaginative, and unfettered by any niggling insistence on factual accuracy. So why did she continue to the next step? I suspect she was simply addicted to the excitement, the attention, the adrenaline rush, or maybe she just wanted to be a big-name fan before Nimbus. For whatever reason, she went on. So what's this Nimbus she just mentioned? So, Nimbus 2003 was a Harry Potter convention in Orlando, Florida, the first of its kind. A few Fiction Alley Inner Circle members had a hand in coordinating it. It was generally scoffed at by Gryffindor Tower members and criticized on Fandom Wank for being kind of overpriced and dumb, which it was. But it was also the love child of this community, and it quickly became like fanfiction writer prom. People were posting about going on diets and planning their outfits and scheduling meetups and planning roommates. It all sounds very middle school, and I'm a little would not want to be there. All these online friends were going to be meeting in person for the first time, and it was a really big deal to them. This is around the time when a live journal account called Potter's Ginny was created. The woman behind it is, of course, a Christian from Texas concerned about the rampant degeneracy of the Harry Potter fandom. And yes, she was apparently another friend of Formato Jam. Only one day after her account was created, it was brought to the attention of the wider fandom by one of Ms.Scribe's OG fangirls, Sarah K. James. Potter's Ginny posted a lot of comments like this in various Harry-Ginny pairing communities to try and stir up support. Steamed. Anyone else surprised by this? Cassie Clare hates Harry-Ginny. I'm relatively new to the fandom, but if the most popular Harry Potter author can openly hate Harry-Ginny, then maybe I'll stay nice and happy up at Gryffindor Tower from now on. It was one thing for the Fiction Alley community to be attacked by faceless haters like Formato Jam and Killigan, but what set Potter's Ginny apart was that she posted photos of herself, which made her an extremely easy target for ridicule. And the thing is, I look at this picture and I'm like, okay, she's smiling kind of awkwardly, like she looks uncomfortable, like her hairstyle probably would have been considered kind of frumpy and outdated in the early 2000s, but like, there's nothing atrociously ugly about her. And yet they talk about her constantly as if she's like an ogre. She's literally Shrek. She's the ugliest person they've ever seen. It doesn't compute to me. They were just mean. I think it must have been like the frumpy church lady stylistics of it that mattered more than anything else about this picture. The Potter's Ginny character was extremely conservative, anti-feminist, slut-shaming. She started beef wherever she could, not just with Ms.Scribe. She was concerned with the whole Fiction Alley community of popular writers being a bunch of immoral sluts. And she would tell them this, and then they would tell her that she needs to lighten up and give her husband a blowjob or whatever. And it was all fun and good, until Potter's Ginny did something much worse. This whole kerfuffle, you know, it had devolved into people just being extremely rude, attacking each other's physical appearances pretty much from the get-go. And then Potter's Ginny decided to go after Ms.Scribe's appearance, Ms.Scribe being a mixed-race woman. So Potter's Ginny went about this by copy and pasting extremely racist and anti-race mixing talking points from neo-Nazi websites. Just dialed it up to an 11 out of nowhere. Full neo-Nazi. She also loves Harry Potter and Jesus and Gryffindor Tower and shipping Harry and Ginny. What is this person? This is not a real person. How did anyone think this was a real person? But they did! They all believed it was a real person, and the fandom, they came together eager to defend and comfort Ms.Scribe and to stomp Potter's Ginny into the ground. And the whole ordeal created this really horrible stereotype in the general fandom consciousness that the average Gryffindor Tower member must just be like this. You know, the only ones that most of these people had ever heard of was Cassandra Clare's stalker Jeff and insane neo-Nazi Potter's Ginny. So their reputation was not looking good. The real kicker is that Potter's Ginny had attempted posting on Gryffindor Tower, actually infiltrating the Gryffindor Tower community, but was immediately deleted as a troll, just squashed like a bug without further thought. They had no idea what she was doing. They were really that isolated. It took them a few days to figure out that what she was doing was just absolutely dragging their reputation through the mud in front of the fandom's most influential members. That was when they put out their official statement. The admins of Gryffindor Tower would like to publicly state that we are in no way affiliated with Potter's Ginny or her live journal. She is not a member of our boards, and as such, has never made a single post there. We neither condone or agree with her statements, and are shocked by them as anyone. If there is someone out there who has information regarding this person, then email one of us. If not, put down your torches and pitchforks, and just chalk up her ramblings to yet another mentally disturbed person who needs help, other than what having a copy of Book 5 can provide. God. A lot of people were not satisfied with this. One such person was a friend of Ms.Scribe and Cassandra Clare named Ebony. She thought they were owed much more in-depth personal apologies from Gryffindor Tower over this. When individuals who work for corporations are proven to have behaved in a sexist, racist, or heterosexist manner, said corporation almost always attempts to make a gesture of conciliation, not only towards those on the inside, but outwards to the offended parties/community. The gesture should occur almost immediately. If you have mud on your blouse, who cares if you were rolling around with the pigs or if you were splattered by chance as you passed by? This does not only apply to the corporate world, it ought to apply to the fandom's most popular sites. Which is all good and true, but completely misses the point of Gryffindor Tower's statement, which was, she never worked for us, we don't know the bitch! Tensions were high. Judgments were clouded by everyone's already terrible impression of Gryffindor Tower. Ebony was one of the original Harry Potter for Grown-Ups members who had been there through Cassandra Clare's stalking by Jeff. So, you know, she'd been through this traumatic event where there was actual wrongdoing on the part of a Gryffindor Tower member. She also drew parallels between Potter's Ginny's racist remarks and Harry Ginny being a pure-blood wizard ship. So some kind of an allegory for race purity. You know, the whole wizard blood purity thing in Harry Potter is not a perfect allegory. It's not even a really good allegory for any real life forms of discrimination, but it seems like a good one on a surface level to a lot of people. I don't know. Potter's Ginny, despite being banned from Gryffindor Tower after making a singular annoying post, Potter's Ginny continued to represent herself as an important member of that community, saying she wrote fanfiction there under a different username, and that's why nobody could find it. And most people simply did not care to check. Like Ebony, they just hated Gryffindor Tower on principle. Meanwhile, all of this was being reported faithfully over on Fandom Wank. Fandom Wank was a journal fan community that was essentially like a daily trashy tabloid for fandom drama. Wank itself seems to have been a slang term meaning something between drama and cringe drama. The Fandom Wank community had a very large following, was very effective at drawing more eyes in to follow and make fun of these sorts of happenings. Not to mention it was a really big arbiter of who came out of these things being seen as correct. In the wake of the whole Potter's Ginny situation was when Gryffindor Tower Hidden Room was created. It was a live journal community. Whoever created it, I wonder who, also created an absolute army of sock puppet accounts to like be part of this community, and they all had like rude or offensive parody names of the actual Gryffindor Tower mods. And once again, I'm just surprised that nobody thought this was insane. Like, this must have taken so much work. But no, everyone just happily joined in, making disgusting jokes about the Gryffindor Tower mods and the characters that they shipped. Many big name fans, including Cassandra Clare, participated at some point. I can't even read you some of the comments they wrote. Not because, like, the YouTube gods will smite me for saying a fuck word or whatever. It's because it's, like, genuinely, like, ew, I'll puke. Like, you people are disgusting. Gryffindor Tower members were mad. Nobody from their community had even done anything, except for Jeff, like a year ago, and yet their name was being dragged through the mud fandom-wide. On top of this, they had found something funny regarding the IP addresses that certain posts were coming from. They brought their findings to a Sugar Quill member with the username Angua9. She will be very important to this story in the end. As much as I am heavily relying on Charlotte Lennox as my source for this story, she relied very heavily on Angua9's evidence, so thank you, Angua9. We love you. Angua and her friends were the first to do some serious digging into Ms.Scribe, and they concluded that the amount of intrigue and turmoil that had befallen Ms.Scribe since she joined the fandom was simply impossible. That all of her attackers were in fact her own sock puppets, and these attacks were self-inflicted. They therefore dubbed her condition Virtual Munchausen Syndrome, which is perhaps a tad dramatic, but it's pretty snappy, you know, I'll give them that. Following Angua's frankly damning investigation, one of the Gryffindor Tower mods named Carissa posted the following: "Time to say goodnight. Oh, she's not messing around." There was an old saying, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. I'm not fond of it in general because I'm not a suspicious person by nature. However, the past few months, it is a saying that has been in the front of my consciousness. Some things have happened that have made me realize myself and my friends are more disliked by a certain group of people than I could have ever imagined. Why, I don't know, but it seems that some people can't forget things that happened nearly 2 years ago. Jeff. Either that, or they're just highly offended that we don't want to be part of their group. Either way, it makes them seem really petty. Anyway, back to my point. It seems that someone has gone to great lengths to embarrass us and indirectly blame us for things that she, in fact, is responsible for. I'm not sure why she did it. Perhaps it started out as a ploy for attention, and when people started connecting her actions, things she did while disguised as another person, several people, in fact, on both sides of the fence, with Gryffindor Tower, she went with it. However, I know it's her. I've been collecting and checking IPs for a while now and noticed a pattern. I didn't say anything for a long time because I wasn't positive, but now I'm almost 100% sure. All I have right now is circumstantial, but when every IP you have traces back to the same place, you can be pretty sure that all of those posts are being made by one person. The IP evidence that they had linked multiple sock puppet accounts of Ms.Scribe's. They found overlaps in IP between Sarah K. James, Formato-Gem, Ms.Scribe, Clarabella, and the creator of Gryffindor Tower Hidden Room. The actual connections, it's a little bit convoluted, but I will put the screenshot on the screen. The next day, Carissa received an email from Clarabella explaining the entire situation, and then one day later, Carissa returned to reveal everything she had learned in another post. I wish none of this had ever happened. Clarabella and Sarah K. James have made some bad decisions and done some really stupid things thinking they wouldn't get caught. They did. Basically, someone named Formato-Gem was stalking Ms.Scribe, and everybody thought it was someone from Gryffindor Tower. It wasn't. I don't know who it was. I'm really sorry this happened to her. It must have been a horrible thing to experience, but it was not anyone the admins of Gryffindor Tower would have ever heard of if it were not for the millions of mentions on various live journals. Truth be told, we think we're owed an apology, a big one, not just from Clara and Sarah, from all of the people who publicly blamed us and bashed us for supporting such radicals. I doubt that's coming though. I'm not holding my breath. She then posts her full email exchange with Clarabella as a source for this version of events that is now emerging, and boy is it stupid. Formato-Gem was very much a real guy and a real stalker who Clarabella then went on to impersonate, which Ms.Scribe didn't know about. The reason why Clarabella had Formato-Gem's account details, could log into his account, was that Ms.Scribe had actually taken him to court over harassment and stalking, and his account details had been listed in the court documents, which Clarabella got a hold of. Clarabella also had Sarah K. James's account login and sometimes posted from her account. She was also a babysitter for Ms.Scribe and often posted from Ms.Scribe's computer. This was back in the day when people did tend to have like a home computer like in the corner of their living room or something. As Lennox says, this gave them a devilishly clever story to explain how Clarabella, Sarah K. James, Formato-Gem, H.G. Empress, that's the creator of the Gryffindor Tower Hidden Room live journal, and various other sock puppets, could have all posted from Ms.Scribe's computer, and Ms.Scribe still be as innocent as a daisy. It's flawless! Except for being so incredibly convoluted and stupid. Clarabella confessed to the community in a heartfelt apology, and Ms.Scribe made a similarly emotional post forgiving her. Everyone cry and hug now, it's okay, we'll all just be friends. And everyone just seemed to accept this. Except for, of course, the Gryffindor Tower mods, who I can only imagine were going through all of the stages of grief at once, like, oh my god, is anyone else seeing these idiots? They continued investigating and found further IP evidence linking Ms.Scribe and Clarabella to Formato-Gem, Killigan Has Hope, and Potter's Ginny. Unfortunately, it is my duty to bring more to light in the recent Potter's Ginny mess. Previously, we posted proof that Clarabella and Sarah K. James were caught posting as Formato-Gem and posting from Ms.Scribe's computer. We had IP evidence and an admission on Clarabella's part. The plot just thickened. We received more IP evidence based on the posts Potter's Ginny made on the Harry and Ginny live journal. It seems that these IP numbers match with posts made as Clarabella, Sarah K. James, and Ms.Scribe. It seems evident to me that all of these posts were made from Ms.Scribe's computer. Yes, the horrible racial slurs she complained about rightly were made on her own computer. Ms.Scribe had 3 sources of access to the internet, 1 which had a fixed IP, 2 which had rolling IPs, and she also used a service called Anonymizer, which would assign you a random IP number for a period of time. Trying to figure out how IPs work and what all of this even means in this whole mess is tiring enough for me as a person 20 years later with no real emotional stake in this. So for people who are in the community and deeply loyal to Ms.Scribe, they did not even try. They did not try to untangle this unruly mess of evidence. Someone even pointed out that if Anonymizer was being used here, these were just like random numbers. They couldn't possibly mean anything evidence-wise. Never mind that Ms.Scribe and her attackers all used the same IP masking service and were all assigned the same numbers at the same period of time. As Lennox points out, in bold lettering, all of these IPs came from one of Ms.Scribe's service providers or anonymizer. These supposed real people with no connection to her in real life were never logged coming from any other IPs that didn't have a connection to her. Which you would think they would be, especially since Clarabella and Formato Jam were supposedly university students, and they were never logged at the universities they were supposed to be attending at this time. Angwinine became fully convinced of Ms.Scribe's guilt. But still, nobody outside of Gryffindor Tower and their few allies at Sugarquill really cared. Ms.Scribe responded in a live journal post, "Current mood, annoyed, sort of like when you see a cockroach. A statement. Gryffindor Tower just ranted about how they wanted to be left alone, but I guess they changed their mind. Everybody knows that you can spoof IP addresses, and if you use IP addresses to claim that someone is committing all sorts of crimes, that is considered reckless disregard for the truth. I believe because what Clara actually posted wasn't enough to get people to feel sorry for you, and frankly, wasn't anything even remotely close to harassing or threatening. You have just begun accusing she, myself, and by third party Sarah of posting messages that we did not, and just so you know, this is libel, which she knows because her husband is a lawyer and she's rich." She fully knew the evidence against her was overwhelming at this point, so she really pushed the idea that the Gryffindor Tower mods were just making it up. They just made it up. They just faked it. You know, it's not that hard to Photoshop a screenshot, idiots. She loved to throw around legal terms and the fact that she had lawyers on her side, her husband, who is rich by the way, and 2 other fandom members she was friends with, one of whom, Heidi, we will hear again from later. She was met with only support from her side of the fandom. People made "I support Ms.Scribe" icons. Having had a close call, Ms.Scribe started deleting a lot of her posts, as well as a lot of posts by her sock puppet accounts. Angwinine started saving the evidence, waiting for her chance. But for now, Gryffindor Tower backed off. They made cockroach icons and wore them bravely, and embraced their fate. There was not a lot they could do about being irrationally hated to the point that nobody would believe them. Ms.Scribe's actions for the next little while were relatively tame. There was no more crazy sock puppets, just the usual clowning on Gryffindor Tower so that nobody would ever believe their version of events. One day Ms.Scribe starts posting about a new job that she has. She's a PR person for a state senator now. She's received a lavish promotion. She's on television in her local area so you'll never see it. She's BFFs with Joe Biden. She's a very important girl boss. No, it does not line up with anything that she said previously about her life, her health, her work situation, but don't worry about it. This is also the time when she starts fleshing out and also outright changing the story of who Clarabella is. Clarabella wasn't just my nanny, you misinformed cunt. She was the person who had to help me get dressed every morning because the entire side of my body was too weak to do it. She was the person who had to take care of my infant daughter because I couldn't do it. She lived with me, you fucktard. Lennox writes, "Okay, so this is the story. Ms.Scribe was on a 12-week leave after a head injury in an auto accident, which ended by mid-February. At that time, she returned to her job as a backup singer, working regularly, though she sometimes got days off. However, in late March, she was hospitalized due to delayed complications from the earlier accident, which must have been at least 4 months in the past by that time, nearly died, and suffered the symptoms of being too weak on the right side of her body to dress herself, although not too weak to pick up her toddler with her right arm, necessitating an in-home babysitter/dresser who either drove 45 minutes to get there occasionally or 3 times a week, or lived with her, depending on what version you believe. However, between March 31st and May 23rd, despite her severe health problems that did not allow her to dress herself, Ms.Scribe not only changed careers and got a new job, but she performed so well in her new job, in spite of the fact that she frequently posts on LiveJournal during office hours, though oddly her IP was never once logged from a work account, that she was rewarded with a lovely new office. Okay, or she was at home playing on her computer the entire time." Lennox is a pretty good writer. I think she just really sums things up so nicely sometimes. I have to quote her. July 2003, the Nimbus 2003 convention rolls around. Ms.Scribe and Cassandra Clare are roommates.
Oh my god, they were roommates.
That's right, it's been a whole 5 months now since she started her LiveJournal account. She's got tons of friends, she's a Fiction Alley mod, she's close enough with Cassandra Clare in the inner circle to be roommates. You know, she's in the inner circle now. She has successfully become one of the big name fans that she so clearly idolized. At Nimbus, of course, she made a whole thing of warning security that she had a scary stalker for Formato Jam who might show up and try and get her. The same group who put on Nimbus were planning to do another convention in 2005 called Witching Hour, and Ms.Scribe accepted a job as their head of PR and advertising, and yes, her credentials in that area are potentially a little questionable. I love this part of the story because when you picture these like online puppet master types, you think of like a shady figure in a basement in a hoodie whose life looks absolutely nothing like how they've portrayed themselves online. But that wasn't the case for Ms.Scribe. There was actually turned out to be a lot of grains of truth in the version of her life that she presented online, her husband was in fact a rich lawyer, and she was hanging out with these people in person, her real face, her real identity, her full last name. A few days after Nimbus, Ms.Scribe broke the shocking news that some, no doubt, jealous and spiteful person had sent anonymous letters to her boss outing her as a fandom-famous author of Harry Potter porn. She wasn't fired, though. She was too valuable to be fired. No, she nobly resigned so as not to hurt her boss's reputation. Our hero, Angua 9, was still seething in the shadows. She vowed that if Ms.Scribe even dared to imply that Gryffindor Tower might be responsible for this, she would come forward with her evidence. In the meantime, she began spreading that evidence quietly to a few trusted friends at a time. It was not long before yet another LiveJournal account popped up with the intention of checking the moral depravity of the Harry Potter fanfiction. This time it was called Watchful Entity. Some of you might have noticed that I have friended you. I have every right to do this, and although I don't plan on posting in any of your journals, and I don't expect you to friend me back, because I am not going to hide the fact that from now on I am keeping my eyes open to anything that could be used to paint one faction of a fandom in a more negative light than others, please do not assume that you know who I am, because I am certain that you do not. I am not associated with GryffindorTower.net, so please spare the world your lame accusations. Know that I have no problem in reporting you for illegal activity, and I won't hesitate to remark about your stupidity online. I am not a stalker, and I will never threaten or harass anyone, but I have the right to read public journals of those I believe are harassing a friend of mine and respond on my own journal. So please stop accusing me of trying to do something I am not, and if you never harass anyone, then I won't respond to your posts. If I respond to a post, it will be respectful, unlike what some of you have been. Lennox clarifies that she has no concrete proof that Watchful Entity was Ms.Scribe, such as IP evidence. It's just highly likely given her usual patterns. As it explains, Watchful Entity never commented on anybody else's live journals. That was so its IP couldn't be logged, by the way. It only friended people to let them know that it was watching and made vague posts about them on its own live journal. And the fandom was just as delighted as it had been on the previous occasions by this weird morality policing account. You would think they would get bored or they would get a little suspicious that this was happening so often. But no, everybody wanted to be friended by watchful entities so that they could wear their scandalous sinfulness as a badge of honor. In fact, other people started creating similar accounts. Like a lot of them. People thought this was just comedy gold, apparently. Lennox explains that the idea of creating, like, parody trolls and sock puppets was briefly considered something very fun and cool, and just absolutely infuriatingly, she implies that perhaps at this time, maybe Ms.Scribe could have come forward and admitted she did the whole thing as a joke and still have been accepted by the fandom. That's how loyal they were to her. She did not do that, though. In September of 2003, Gryffindor Tower exploded, and Ms.Scribe had nothing to do with it. The mods fought, the community disintegrated, the entire site ended up being deleted, and Ms.Scribe had no hand in it. It's just that such is the course of many fandom communities. And I'm sure that she was sad to see her designated punching bag go, but she also benefited hugely in other ways. A ton of screenshots and evidence against her had been hosted on Gryffindor Tower and on the Gryffindor Tower live journal page, which were now deleted and unrecoverable. She joyously danced on their grave. She made 7 posts about it in 2 days of the fall of Gryffindor Tower. She also created a journal fan account called Karma Bitch so that she could post on Fandom Wank about them. Looks like the infamous GryffindorTower.net, best known for spawning a few stalkers and being all-around nasty group of vindictive fandomers, is closing up shop. They give the reason that there had been some disharmony among their ranks. There was a mass defriending between the so-called queens of Harry and Ginny. She then quotes the parting message from one of the Gryffindor Tower mods named Paula. My apologies for not seeing the humor in the current situation. Quite honestly, and I've been wanting to say this for a very long time, I think all of you have lost your effing minds. Every last one of you. I want no part whatsoever to do with Gryffindor Tower anymore, as I am just way past being sick and tired of this sort of thing, and unlike the rest of you, a bit too mature for this sort of thing. I wish all of you the best, and hope that you will all find the courage to seek the medical attention that you also obviously need. Signed, Paula. So, she's locked them out, since she is the one who had originally registered the site. Well, you know what they say, what goes around comes around. Looks like the exterminator has paid these roaches a little visit. Ms.Scribe later tried to suck up to Paula, sent her all these slimy little emails, hoping that she would talk shit about the other Gryffindor Tower mods with her. Ms.Scribe then posted an epic poem, or her idea of an epic poem, about the fall of Gryffindor Tower, or her idea about the fall of Gryffindor Tower. And it is like 3 pages long, printed out in size, like, probably 10 or 11 font. Once upon a fandom. The words written here tell a woeful beautiful tale of hatred and anger and angst and betrayal. It began in a fandom not so far away, where writers did laugh as they shipped and they played. They wrote Harry, Hermione, and Ron, Ginny too, not to mention young Draco, who done all but few. And alas, they were happy, because all things were well. They wrote Slash, they wrote Het, had real stories to tell. Their minds were open, their pens, they were free. They were nearly as perfect as a fandom could be. Girl, what? A whole 3 months passed without any new antics on Ms.Scribe's part, and then Cassandra Clare posted something about a new fanfiction she was working on, the mere idea of which pissed a lot of people off. This work was to be an R-rated Ron Ginny incest fic titled Mortal Instruments! And a lot of people who liked these characters were mad because they saw this as a very, like, mean-spirited move, as this being some kind of mocking parody fic that she meant to mock these characters that she didn't like by writing incest about them. Hilarious that her joke incest fic was the one that ended up inspiring her published YA series of the same title. She didn't change the title. I mean, she kept the incest in it too. I know we were all reading this at like 12 years old, like, girl, what the fuck? Why did he turn out to be her brother? One of the Sugar Quill founders named Arabella, not Clarabella, I know they sound similar, Arabella, posted a rant against incest fics, against making light of incest. Of course, she was immediately dogpiled by Cassandra Clare and Ms.Scribe's usual crowd. Ms.Scribe so thoughtfully noted, someone's got a fandom wank this whole situation, and lo and behold, only minutes later, a journal fan account called Sporkify was created to do just that. Arabella, Sugar Quill co-founder, rants about incest fics. Tears up. Those HP fandomers are a bunch of heathens and their fics get popular because they have no scruples. Alas, Arabella has scruples. She has only written Ron, Hermione, and Harry, Ginny, which, as we all know, God and J.K. Rowling fully sanction. Ms.Scribe is so obnoxious and insufferable. Some of her sock puppets have really good one-liners, though. I see why everyone was having so much fun, like, pissing them off or feeding the trolls or whatever. Fully sanctioned by God and J.K. Rowling. I am astral projecting. Smite me, God and J.K. Rowling. I love trans rights. The opinions of fandom wank pretty much always aligned with Ms.Scribe, Cassandra Clare, the fandom alley, anything goes attitude. So after Ms.Scribe made this post as Sporkify, hundreds of commenters went to Arabella's live journal and essentially bullied her out of the fandom. But Ms.Scribe was not done yet. It seems she was a little hung up on the idea of scruples, and I mean, it's a fun word, scruples. A few days later, a live journal account was created called Fandom Scruples. This journal was created to reward responsible members of the fandom. If you were friended, we're highlighting that you have had the courage not to succumb to the popular trends, which have led to this fandom being infected with indecent and irresponsible fanfic. I would personally like to thank Arabella for having the courage to finally speak out against this. In most ways, it was just a rehashing of all of the previous sock puppets. Like for Maddo Jam, it made lists. This time it had both a gold list of authors that it approved of and a black list that was essentially the Big Name Sinners list part 2. And like Watchful Entity, it was a lot more impersonal and removed. Never made the mistake of commenting on anybody else's live journals so that the IPs could be tracked. Interestingly, whoever created the Fandom Scruples account didn't really seem to be familiar with any of the gold list authors, like, at all. The people who were on it pretty much immediately considered it to just be some weird smear campaign against them, because none of them were these like perfect Christian family-friendly authors that it was suggesting that they were. One of the gold list authors made the very succinct response of immediately posting some smut under a link titled, "Kiddies, click here for free porn." But Fandom Scruples really got under people's skin when it posted the following. To those who might not know it, Child Online Protection Act, COPPA, was passed on October 21st, 1998. The act makes it a federal crime to use the World Wide Web to distribute for commercial purposes material considered harmful to minors, with penalties up to $150,000 for each day of violation and up to 6 months in prison. There are no excuses. We have come to a decision that we will give websites 2 weeks to comply with COPPA, or we will report them to a federal agency that we have sought advice from. The fandom's resident lawyer, Heidi, then jumped in to get him. Heidi was also one of Cassandra Clare's old fandom friends from Harry Potter for Grown-Ups and one of the founding members of Fiction Alley. She said, "Dear Fandom Scruples, yes, obscenity is illegal. I'm glad you spent a lot of time researching that. But let me repeat what I linked before. The Supreme Court said there are unresolved free speech concerns that prevent the law COPPA from taking effect now." Angua9 commented on that post saying, "Heidi, it is my opinion that Fandom Scruples is a sock puppet by someone who couldn't care less about smut on the internet, but just wants to cause excitement and flaming in the fandom. That would explain why they are behaving in such a ridiculously offensive and counterproductive manner for their so-called cause. There are two ways I know of to track down sock puppets. The best one is if they post on someone's journal or a site where IPs are logged. Apparently the person behind fandom scruples has been too cagey to do that. The other is to track down who first reported the sock puppet to the fandom. The earliest reference to fandom scruples that I can find was a fandom wank posted by Sporkify less than 4 hours by my computer's time logs after fandom scruples made his or her first post. If anyone knows who Sporkify is, I don't, but I'm sure others do. I would suggest asking him or her where they heard of fandom scruples. Angua told Lennox that she was certain that Sporkify was Ms.Scribe at this point. She was just curious to see if any of Ms.Scribe's friends knew and would come forward instead. The implosion of Gryffindor Tower did not stop the now former Gryffindor Tower mods from still having beef with the rest of the fandom. Everybody continued their stupid slap fighting. Fandom wank continued reporting on it, drawing in more people to follow the train wreck. And then something interesting happened when a user called StarbuckX posted a rant against Ms.Scribe, and to a lesser extent Cassandra, Claire, and Heidi as well. And yes, in a shocking plot twist, StarbuckX was real. However, she received an anonymous comment from someone actually agreeing with her, calling Ms.Scribe a wench, directing users to Ms.Scribe's live journal so they could go harass her. Now, StarbuckX did not immediately rejoice in this newfound ally, but compared the IP address on that comment with a friend who had Ms.Scribe's IP address. The wonders of IP tracing is that when you compare the IP with a friend, you realize this first post was actually made by Ms.Scribe's nanny, or her long-lost cousin Fredo, or maybe another distant relative of hers, because, of course, it couldn't be her. Ms.Scribe responded just by talking about how Clarabella lived with her and dressed her after her brain injury, and how dare you refer to her as a nanny, StarbuckX, whoever the fuck you are. I'm not going anywhere. You think you people actually have any relevance to my life whatsoever? Reapplies makeup. Hardly, dear. Now please continue. You amuse me to no end. Yeah, but okay, but they caught you. They caught you doing the thing that you do. It didn't matter. She didn't care about actually convincing her enemies that she was innocent. She just cared about convincing her friends, who were already inclined to believe her no matter what she said. However, former Gryffindor Tower members responded to this statement by saying that Clarabella obviously wasn't even real, to which Ms.Scribe cackles and bats her perfectly mascaraed eyelashes and calls people cunts and the thing she does. She claims that other fandom members, including Infinitus, spoke to Clarabella on the phone. Nobody ever comes forward to verify this. Not only was Clarabella never captured under any IP address that was not associated with Ms.Scribe, but the details about who she was varied wildly. Her birthday varied wildly on different profiles. In the switch from Portkey to Live Journal, she had gone from being a 31-year-old mother and literary editor to a 19-year-old student. Cut to our hero now, Angua 9. She had to read all of this garbage with her own two eyes. She had to deal with fandom scruples victimizing her and the Sugar Quill mods. Angua decided finally to take her evidence to Heidi. Now, Heidi was, of course, one of the Fiction Alley mods. She was part of the Fiction Alley inner circle, but she also had a reputation for being very, very reasonable and intelligent. You know, she was a lawyer in real life. Angua found the opportunity to engage with Heidi when Heidi made this post addressing the drama and stuff, basically trying to deflect all blame for the harassment that Gryffindor Tower had faced off of Fiction Alley. Look, I have made it very clear that I am sick to death of the feuding. I'm perfectly happy to mend walls to peacefully coexist, but I cannot do it by speaking into a vacuum. When nobody responds, no dialogue will take place, and I'm not the non-responsive one. You see, guys, my point is simply that you're all a bunch of deranged freaks because Jeff stalked my friend once. And we're innocent, and we've never done anything wrong. Now, can we all just get along? Angua responded, Heidi, if you're really serious that you want the feuding to stop, you can stop it, but it won't be easy. Those former Gryffindor Tower members have been the target of hundreds of scornful and often cruel live journal and fandom wank posts, a good number of them from you personally. They have been accused of harboring racists, homophobes, nutty Christians, etc., and people, including you, believed it. They have been accused by you, I think, of forging IPs to frame someone. They have been accused of writing letters to someone's boss and a newspaper. Sporkify fandom wanks them all the time. They think, and I believe they are right in thinking this, that Sporkify is indeed a Fiction Alley mod. They're hurting and angry and traumatized. Sure, some of them are jerks and idiots who say and believe ridiculous things, but my god, that's nothing new in this fandom. Heidi responded by informing Angua that there was no way Sporkify could be a Fiction Alley mod because she asked them, and they said it wasn't them. In Lennox's words, I can't help thinking Angua might have overestimated Heidi's investigative skills. Angua then sent Heidi an absolute odyssey of an email. It chronicled all of Ms.Scribe's sock puppets with IP proof. Angua said in her email, "I also think that if Ms.Scribe would cease her activities, the wank level in the Harry Potter fandom would go down about 40%, that it would, in fact, return to the level it had been at spring of last year when she joined us and Formato Gem made his unforgettable appearance. I wish very, very, very much that she would cease her activities. There would be a lot less pain and anguish and this fandom would have a better reputation." Angua sent this email 6 times and was ignored every time. June 2004 rolls around. The Prisoner of Azkaban movie came out, and Fiction Alley and The Leaky Cauldron, which is another site, don't worry about it, sponsored this private viewing at a theater in New York. It was attended by all of the usual fandom royalty, Cassandra Clare, Ms.Scribe, a bunch of Fiction Alley people, and everybody just had a grand old time. However, 2 months after this event, Fandom Scruples came back from the dead with its first post in about 6 months. Big name fan roast. My own life has been in transition, so I haven't been able to get on the internet since then. I have the time now to say what some of you will always be too afraid to say. Those of you that call themselves big name fans are sad, laughable jokes. Here are a list of those people that some of you think are so cool and who I had the displeasure of meeting, albeit briefly. That list had Cassandra Clare and Heidi at the very top, and then Ms.Scribe buried somewhere more inconspicuously around the middle, don't worry about it. There are many more whose names I can't remember. Why do some of you worship these people? They are selfish, self-absorbed, immoral, and childish liars. I laughed when after the show, Heidi screamed at her husband downstairs, although I was unfortunately trapped in a line on the escalator and couldn't get close enough to hear what she was screaming about. It's disgusting the way you all cater to some of these people, and it's even more disgusting how selfish and self-absorbed these people appear to be. I got the impression that if I stood too close to Cassandra Clare, guards would attack me because I wasn't one of the chosen few whose seats were saved near her. Are these people who deserve fame? No. They deserve to be held responsible for acting irresponsibly, writing immoral fic, and acting like celebrities. Here is your chance to roast them the way they deserve to be. And apparently people actually believed that there was this mystery stalker in the shadows watching them at the Prisoner of Azkaban showing, somehow recognizing all of them even though they were fanfiction authors who rarely or ever posted pictures of themselves. One undignified Fiction Alley mod named Ari wrote, "I find it extremely creepy and stalkerish that you say you met me at Prisoner of Azkaban NYC and that you now have confirmation that I'm an evil bitch. You have seen me in person and lambasted me for what? Helping people find the right theaters, helping children separated from their parents." I hate all of these people. I hate every single one of these people. When you do this under the guise of an anonymous alias, your cowardice sweeps away any credibility or honesty you might have had. You are obviously naive and patently immature. I would welcome dialogue with you if I thought you were serious and not a prank, or thought you were smart enough to understand anything outside of your own solipsistic anguish. You must be all of 15. Everything you have said smacks of immaturity in the worst way. I know many fandomers who are 14 or 15 who have more savvy and maturity than you will probably ever. You sad, sad little twerp. In the face of this idiocy, Angua9 insisted that Fandom Scruples was obviously one of the big name fans, one of the 16 big name fans listed in the roast. In response, Ari then jokingly created a poll where people could vote on which of the 16 they thought it secretly was, although she made her real opinions clear. I'm starting to think it really must be Angua or one of her minions. You people need shock therapy or a detox from the crack you are on. Drugs are bad, just say no, etc. I hate 2000s humor and I hate all of these people. This is my frowny face. This is how I feel right now. Cassandra Clare actually commented on this post, letting Ari know that it was not just one of the 16 that Angua meant to accuse, but that she meant Ms.Scribe specifically. I would assume Angua means Dion from her post, for what it's worth. This shows no understanding whatsoever of who Dion is, but that's no big surprise. She calls Angua a militant Ron Hermione shipper, and says, "I don't necessarily think that Angua and her folks are behind Fandom Scruples. I think she's either using it as an excuse to fling accusations at people she already hates, or more depressingly, actually is that paranoid. Doesn't mean I think she's Fandom Scruples, though." Lennox writes, "I can't help thinking that perhaps Cassandra Clare didn't understand something about her friend Dion that Angua did understand. Her hunger for controversy, attention, and sympathy. I can easily believe that Cassandra Clare and others on the list were creeped out, pissed off, and upset at Fandom Scruples' post. I certainly would have been. And goodness knows Cassandra Clare already had enough attention and controversy in her fandom life. But well, they say we always give others the gift we want for ourselves. And by making them victims along with her, Ms.Scribe was, in a weird way, showing her love for her friends. I think that's exactly it. Because there's nothing Ms.Scribe wanted more than to be at the center of the fandom's attention, constantly persecuted by haters and stalkers. So I think it was a really messed up sort of compliment that she harassed her friends online for years as well. And maybe there was an undertone of jealousy sometimes as well. I mean, at least for Cassandra Clare, maybe there was, but it was born from her love and awe for these people. At this point, Ms.Scribe was still widely liked by the fandom, still firmly held her place in the royal fiction alley inner circle. However, Fandom Scruples' Sporkify situation, it had been a close call, and she deleted all of Fandom Scruples' posts after this. And that was actually the end of her serious sock puppeting career, as far as we know. Like, for all we know, she's nearly 50 years old and still prowling the fandoms of today. Lennox tells us that Ms.Scribe never suffered some dramatic, fiery downfall, but rather withdrew from fandom life slowly. I would say now that Ms.Scribe did suffer a dramatic, fiery demise. It was the publication of Lennox's unauthorized biography, but Lennox didn't know that while she was still writing the biography. Yeah, you get it. Anyway, it was 2004. There was an American election coming up, and one LiveJournal user in the fandom made a post coming out of the closet. That's right. I am a George W. Bush supporter. I always have been. I was born this way. I don't generally make it well known because so many of you hate him. I don't always agree with everything he says or does, but I like him, and I like most of his ideas. Another user then directly compared coming out as a Bush supporter in the Harry Potter fandom to coming out as gay, which is some serious irony because the reason a lot of them didn't like him was because he was anti-gay rights. Cassandra Clare made a post kind of just musing on her inner turmoil a little bit at finding out that friends and respected writers had such differing political beliefs than her own, and whether friendship was still possible given that. Ms.Scribe was the one who then took that and ran with it and started defriending everyone who supported Bush. The Fiction Alley mods discovered a LiveJournal page called Wizards for Bush. I cannot make this shit up. I could not make this shit up. And many of them declared that anyone with any connection to that LiveJournal or who supported Bush should unfriend them immediately. And I know what you're thinking, but Wizards for Bush was not created by Ms.Scribe. This was real. So far, all of the drama she'd been in was fabricated by her to make her look good. But this shit was real, unfortunately. There really were a bunch of angry Bush supporters in the Harry Potter fandom who were mad at Ms.Scribe and her friends for being so immature and intolerant and unfriending them. And a lot of the fandom wank community agreed with the Wizards for Bush that they were the real oppressed minority of the Harry Potter fandom and being unfairly persecuted for using their free speech. That's crazy. It's like, it's almost as if you have the free speech to say you don't support gay rights. Other people have the free speech to say, LOL, fuck you then, I don't want to be friends. You whiny toddler people. Another big event which started some drama in the fandom was that Cassandra Clare's apartment was broken into and her laptop was stolen, as well as the laptops of her roommate and her boyfriend. Heidi organized a fundraiser to replace the laptops, which raised over $2,000 in only 9 hours. And yet again, public opinion was not in their favor. A lot of people just did not understand why you would give a stranger on the internet money just because you liked their fanfiction. Nowadays, obviously, it's very normal to support online creators, especially if you know that money is going directly to something which supports their work, and like, a laptop is pretty essential to writing fanfiction. I think nobody would bat an eye if a creator did something like this today. But back then, fundraising money from strangers online was considered very, like, sketchy and immoral. This story was reported on Fandom Wank, obviously with a negative spin on it, criticizing Cassandra Clare for taking money from her fans. Ms.Scribe passionately defended her and Heidi. Excuse me, you know, she's a real person, and those of us who gave the most money are her real life friends, i.e. hanging out, drinking, and chilling with the homies kind of friends. Got it? And since when do random acts of kindness deserve to be wanked? Just to point out, and maybe a good amount of people aren't considering this, most people who are her quote-unquote fans probably sent in maybe $5 or so, with a few exceptions, which is hardly a tragedy. The bulk of the money came from the people who know and care about her in real life, myself included. And I give to charity every year, and I give to friends. Where is the wank? One Fandom Wank commenter correctly pointed out that this doesn't sound great either. It kind of just makes it sound like they take for granted the smaller donations from fans. After seeing the overwhelming support for Cassandra Clare, another fandom member named Sapphire Isle commented on Heidi's LiveJournal talking about how she had similarly tried to fundraise online and been unsuccessful. She was trying to fundraise for her mother's cancer treatment. Cassandra Clare immediately posted about Sapphire Isle's fundraiser, trying to get her large fan base to go over there and help. When Sapphire Isle and her mom, who had also joined LiveJournal under the username Saph's Mom, asked Heidi also to post about the fundraiser, Heidi offered lots of helpful solutions and tips for how to get their fundraiser out there because she cared so much, but refused to promote it herself. Heidi's friends and followers then went over to Saf's mom's journal to harass her, to harass a woman dying from cancer for being so entitled to other people's attention. They were further egged on by Ms.Scribe's proclamation that she was skeptical of this, that like, you can't just believe everything that everyone says online all the time, which is hilarious coming from her, but essentially she implied that this woman was faking having cancer to steal their money. This anonymous comment and others like it traced back to Ms.Scribe's IP. I'm amazed at how many people are shocked that people don't immediately trust that this woman isn't lying. I'm not saying she is, and for what it's worth, I think she probably really is sick, but it's the internet. I think people have the right to be a little skeptical. People begged Heidi to tell her followers to stop, but she callously refused any blame. One user said, "Wow, I am actually honestly so furious, I'm shaking. I've been in fandom for nearly a decade, and I'm seeing a lot of low, ugly, and completely unconscionable shit. But this seriously tops pretty much everything I've ever seen. The number of Heidi's friends not only spewing all over fandom wank about their disgust that Saf's mom won't just go shut up and die somewhere out of their line of sight, not to mention the ones actually going to this woman's journal to lecture her about how wrong she was to ask for help from a woman who continually toots her own horn for her charity work. When you're descending on a dying woman's journal to lecture her because a big name fan and her minions found her pleas for help distasteful, you seriously need to fucking reevaluate." Lennox writes that several people have told her they started disliking Ms.Scribe because of her actions here. In December of 2004, a member of the Fiction Alley community made this post prompting users to comment anonymously. They had turned IP logging off, so it really was anonymous, prompting them to comment anonymously with something presumably rude or confrontational that they wished they could tell people on their friends list or a specific person on their friends list. Turns out a lot of people secretly hated each other, and a lot of people secretly hated the Fiction Alley inner circle. One person used a photo that Ms.Scribe had recently posted. It was an ultrasound image of her second child, and they took that photo she'd recently posted and captioned it, "I want to grow up to be a cunt just like mommy." This comment obviously could have just been Ms.Scribe. This is exactly the kind of thing she would get a kick out of, but it might have been real because she'd been facing some actual backlash lately. And maybe the actual criticism was starting to get to her, or maybe it just wasn't as interesting as the drama she'd fabricated for herself and she got bored. Maybe friends were turning against her privately. Maybe Heidi and Cassandra Clare finally read the emails. We don't know. But for whatever reason, in early 2005, Ms.Scribe changed her live journal name. That way, every previous post she'd made with her previous username, it showed up as if her account has been deleted. She locked most of her live journal posts except for a few fan favorites, made the announcement that she would be leaving the fandom. She resigned as a Fiction Alley mod, as the PR person for the Witching Hour convention. She said that her live journal would be purely just personal content from now on, no more fandom content. She later completely locked her account so that nobody could see anything except for people on her friends list. There was another brief episode after this where she had created another sock puppet account that was another like racist neo-Nazi type character. Nothing really that new though, nothing which ultimately changes her story. Basically, people had been making these like Confederacy themed Ron Hermione icons, and she got involved in the drama there, which is literally, there were real racists afoot. There were people actually doing some weird racist shit, so I don't understand why there is a need to construct fake ones? I don't know. For the sake of this video not being 2 hours long, after she declared she was leaving the fandom, she mostly stayed out of it, and that was the end of her Harry Potter related antics. When Lennox started releasing the unauthorized biography chapter by chapter in 2006, Ms.Scribe had already been withdrawn from the fandom for a while, but anyone who still was remaining there, who had good memories of her or still had her on her friends list, they heard about it, and thankfully majority of them believed Lennox this time and turned against Ms.Scribe. She changed her live journal username yet again to try and evade some of the backlash. She maintained that her version of events was 100% the truth, which left a few loose ends left to tie up. So Angwa called the police department, a police department that Ms.Scribe had indicated, the specific police department, had information about her case against Formato-Jam. Angwa 9 actually called them, verified there was no case, he was never real. Infinitus reached out to Lennox in a brief email, and Lennox believes that she was a real person, but we will never have We will never know either way whether she was in league with Ms.Scribe or not. Cassandra Clare emailed Angwa to provide screenshots of comments that Formato Jam had left on her live journal under Ms.Scribe's IP address. Heidi posted a public apology, although I'm sure it must have been extremely stinky and pretentious and disingenuous. The release of the unauthorized biography inspired a lot of other internet detectives to try and figure out if certain things had been true, if the details of Ms.Scribe's medical history were as she actually said, if there was any possibility that Clarabella possibly could have been real. And there does appear to be some grains of truth in the story of her life that Ms.Scribe fed to the fandom. There is a record of her suing a trucking company over injuries that she suffered in a car accident in 2002. She likely did employ somebody to help her take care of her daughter at some point, but it was definitely not her adoring fangirl, Clarabella, who she met through fanfiction. And it's just like, why embellish these things for clout in the Harry Potter fandom? Ms.Scribe's defense, as stated by some of her anonymous sock puppets that people very quickly saw through, as well as some of her few remaining friends, was essentially, just because something sounds true and very well researched doesn't mean it is. I don't believe you because I don't feel like it. So, nothing new. Posting as herself on her own account, Ms.Scribe said that she had not read the unauthorized biography because it was cringe, and surely everything in it was completely made up because she has never done anything wrong in her life. In August 2007, she came back and yet again tried to throw Clarabella, who was totally real, under the bus for all of the sock puppets. She said she was so sorry and she regretted everything, and she should have believed those poor people over at Gryffindor Tower who Clarabella was torturing. And Ms.Scribe, she was devastated too because she had lost a friend over this because she had loved Clarabella so much and she turned out to be an evil manipulator. So if you think about it really hard, Ms.Scribe is still the victim here. Yeah, I don't think people bought it because as far as I know, that's the last the fandom ever heard from her. These days, for all we know, she's out there still terrorizing other fandoms. Hopefully not, though, because she's nearly 50. Hopefully she's just having a chill life with her family and cringes horribly every time she thinks back on all of this. And that is it. That is this marathon of a video. This took me 4 sittings to film. Jesus Christ. I'm out. See you later. Bye. Oh my God.